They called him a prophet, a lion of God. But he got a teenage girl pregnant, and to keep his secret, he burned his family alive. This isn't a fall from grace. It's a descent into hell. Welcome to the True Crime Whisper. It was a quiet Sunday night in a peaceful Toronto suburb, the kind of night where the only sounds are crickets and distant laughter. Then, a scream tore through the calm. There's fire. They're inside. Oh my God. They're still inside. Within minutes, the elegant Sterling home was an inferno. Abigail Sterling, a loving wife and mother, and her 2 young daughters, Isabel and Olivia, gone, swallowed by the flames. This was the family of Pastor Elias Sterling, leader of the colossal Northern Star Ministries, a man who preached of faith, strong homes, and unwavering vows. As the city mourned, as tributes poured in, one question, like a sinister whisper, began to circulate. Where was Pastor Elias when his world burned down? Days later, he appeared, a vision in white, his voice trembling. Broken, some said, but others saw something else in his eyes. A flicker, a void, the anointed lion of the north, suddenly, terrifyingly alone. But was he truly a victim, or was this just the first act of a horrifying play? To understand the fire, you must first understand the man. Elias Sterling. Faith wasn't just practiced in his childhood home. It was law, but a dark thread ran through his family history, a chilling pattern of losing male children, the Sterling name constantly slipping away. Elias swore he would be different. He would build an empire, a legacy that would echo for generations. And he did. From a handful in a rented gym, Northern Star Ministries exploded. His voice was a siren song, his presence electric. He married the graceful Abigail. Their daughters, Isabel and Olivia, were the perfect picture of his teachings. His church was a beacon. My house is built on the rock. He'd roar from the pulpit, and thousands would roar back. But behind the divine pronouncements, a desperate, human fear festered. He had the ministry, the wealth, the adoration. But who would carry the Sterling name? Who would inherit his throne? This obsession for a son, a male heir, began to burn hotter than any fire he preached about. And some fires, once lit, demand to be fed. Then she appeared. Brielle Davis, 16, a girl from 2 blocks over, from a world of mildew and deferred dreams. She was always around the Sterling home, a shadow in the periphery, ostensibly a friend to Isabel and Olivia. But Brielle wasn't just visiting. She was studying. The gleaming silverware, Abigail's effortless grace, Pastor Elias's commanding presence. To Brielle, it was an alien, perfect world. And her mother, Denise, saw the hunger in her daughter's eyes, whispering, "Some doors don't open unless you knock hard enough, baby." Brielle wasn't just going to knock. She planned to kick the door down. Elias, consumed by his private longing, a longing Abigail didn't share, began to see Brielle not as his daughter's friend, but as a possibility, a solution. And Brielle, preternaturally astute, sensed his yearning, that gaping void in his carefully constructed life. This wasn't a schoolgirl crush. This was a calculated siege. The lines blurred with terrifying speed. Was she merely a pawn in his game, or was she the one holding all the cards? Their dance of deception escalated. Secret rendezvous in seedy motels, burner phones buzzing with clandestine messages. A world away from the sacred vows Elias preached. Then, the moment that would change everything. Brielle, standing before him, a positive pregnancy test in her hand. "It's yours," she stated, her gaze unwavering. And then, the 5 words Elias had prayed, perhaps even bargained with darker forces, to hear. And, "It's a boy." Relief so potent it was almost divine, washed over him. The Sterling name would live. He showered her with gifts, tiny clothes, a gold bracelet engraved Elias Jr., tangible proof of his answered prayer. But the illusion of salvation shattered. The grateful girl vanished. In his church office, Brielle, no longer a child but a chillingly composed strategist, delivered her ultimatum. "You need to make me your wife," she whispered, her eyes like chips of ice. "Or I'll tell everyone what you did, and that you did it to your daughter's friend." The anointed lion of the north was caught in a snare of his own making. His empire, his very soul, now dangled by a thread held by a 16-year-old girl. The price of his legacy was becoming terrifyingly clear. Trapped in his own personal hell, Elias made a decision. A monstrous, irreversible decision, born of desperation and diabolical pride. That Sunday evening, the Sterling home was a stage set for a tragedy. He played the doting husband, the loving father, bringing home their favorite pizza and chicken. He laughed. He smiled. Perfect performance. But the knot in his stomach was a coiled serpent. At the dinner table, as his unsuspecting family ate and chatted, he watched. The sweet iced tea, poured by his own hand, held more than just sugar. It held death. Abigail, radiant, raised her glass. "To family," she said. A clink. A sip. None but Elias noticed the faint, unfamiliar bitterness. A phone call. A flimsy excuse. He stepped outside, closing the door softly on the life he was about to extinguish. Then, the sounds. A sharp pop, a whoosh, a terrifying rumble. The house consumed, a raging pyre. Abigail, Isabel, Olivia, sedated, incapacitated by the poison, never stood a chance. And there, at the edge of the chaos, stood Pastor Elias Sterling, watching. Some saw a man in profound shock. Others, those who looked closer, recalled a horrifying stillness. No tears, no frantic calls for help, just watching. The first part of his monstrous plan was complete. But what came next would stun everyone. The initial investigation, perhaps blinded by the pastor's apparent devastation, concluded. A tragic electrical fault. Support flooded in for the grieving leader. At the televised funeral, a spectacle of sorrow, Elias stood in white, a symbol of purity, beside 3 closed caskets. And in the back, a quiet, watchful presence. Brielle Davis, dressed in black, her expression unreadable. Weeks passed. The city began to heal. And then Pastor Elias Sterling went live. No warning. Just him, on camera, his voice unervingly calm. "There's been one person," he began, the world holding its breath, "who stood by me, prayed for me, reminded me that life could still go on." He paused, the silence deafening. "Her name is Brielle." The internet detonated. Disbelief, fury. A teenage girl? His murdered daughter's friend? He offered no explanation, ending the broadcast with a cryptic, "You don't have to understand it. Just know that I found peace." But this wasn't peace. It was the calm before an even greater storm. The wedding was swift, private, almost clandestine. No grand church ceremony, no adoring congregation. Just Elias and Brielle. And with the ring barely on her finger, the new First Lady Sterling moved with chilling efficiency. Church accounts, land titles, confidential ministry folders. Brielle seized control of everything. Staff, once loyal to Elias, now found themselves answering to a 16-year-old girl who radiated an unnerving authority. "We're building something new," she told a bewildered board member. The empire Elias had built was now hers to command. But she had one more secret to deploy. But even in his new life, a sliver of doubt, a nagging inconsistency about the pregnancy, began to torment Elias. The due date that didn't quite add up. The doctor's office that was supposedly closed. He finally confronted Brielle. The mask didn't just slip. It shattered. She looked at him, not with fear, but with a chilling, almost bored indifference. "The baby isn't yours, Elias," she stated, her voice flat. "It's for Cameron, my boyfriend. And it's a girl. Every murder, every lie, every betrayal, all for a phantom son." The truth was a poisoned dart, striking him in the heart of his monstrous pride. He roared, a wounded animal, his carefully constructed world imploding. Then he crumpled. Years of sermons, of projected honor, of carefully built legacy, all annihilated. Later that night, Pastor Elias Sterling was pronounced dead. Cardiac arrest, the report said. But those who saw his face in those final moments saw a look of such profound, frozen betrayal. It was clear his spirit had been murdered long before his heart gave out. Elias's death unleashed a firestorm. Online sleuths dissected every sermon, every photo. Anonymous tips flooded the police. Where was the ultrasound proving the baby was a boy? The question hung in the air. The case was quietly reopened. But Brielle Sterling? She had vanished like smoke. Her mother claimed no contact. Yet, a nurse at a private clinic remembered a young woman, matching Brielle's description, paying cash, giving birth to a healthy baby girl named Grace. A man named Cameron had visited, whispering the baby had his mama's nose. But the trail for now went cold. Brielle had played them all and disappeared with her prize, though what that prize truly was remained a chilling mystery. Northern Star Ministries, the empire built on charisma and lies, crumbled to dust. Bank accounts frozen, the building padlocked. Elias Sterling, the anointed lion, was erased, his name a stain. He desperately wanted a legacy. He left only ashes. 3 caskets for the family he sacrificed, 1 lonely gravestone for himself, and a daughter, Grace, born of deception, a child he never knew. His story wasn't destiny fulfilled. It was a descent into damnation. But what became of Brielle, the teenage puppeteer who pulled the strings of a powerful pastor? And what fate awaited baby Grace, born into this vortex of lies and murder? That story, dear viewers, is even darker, and it's one we're going to tell right after this. Stay with us. You won't believe where the trail leads next.